Time is 5 p.m. Today is Monday, October 3rd, 2022. I call to order the special City Commission meeting for the City of Clewiston. If you would all stand for the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge to the Flag, please. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Martin, do we have any additions, deletions, changes?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Second. Motion by Highslope, second by Gardner. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have any public comments as to any item that's on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 1, Resolution 2022-089. This declares a state of local emergency for the city pursuant to Section 252 Florida statutes. There is no financial impact. Recommended motion is to approve the Resolution 2022-089. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Thompson, second by Highslope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 2, Resolution 2022-090. This approves the renewal of the June 21st, 2021 professional services agreement with Thompson Consulting Services, LLC. And that's for the debris monitoring services for an additional 1-year period. There's no financial impact. Recommended motion is to approve Resolution 2022-090. We have a motion? So moved. Motion by Highslope. Second. Second by Gardner. All in favor? Discussion?
No relation.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Our third item is absolutely, yes, sir.
Danny Williams, Director of Operations. I was in touch with the company today. It looks like they may be trying to start Wednesday or maybe the end of this week. He's trying to get some local contractors to come on board. So I gave him a few names to work with.
Thank you.
We should be a go.
Awesome.
This is for the horticulture side?
Yes,
Yeah.
and by the way, Debbie's been working very hard. She's got a letter. She's been out today. We do have some mixed piles, and it could be a problem. So she's addressing that issue now. And what's going to happen is probably if you don't separate it, you're going to have a special pickup. That'll be $200 from the city.
Okay.
But we are working fast. Debbie's been out all day. But she got a great little letter there she's handing out. So.
How many have you separated yet?
I tried. I did one this morning. One of my neighbors.
The bags are a stickler because everybody went out thinking they were doing the city a favor, put their stuff in bags, and now
It's true, but they can't grind plastic. So that's the thing.
But that's an easy fix for a homeowner, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's been a few where there's been
Yeah.
pallets. They need to separate those. You have a neighbor, if you ride by that pile, just might want to. Yeah. Oh, okay. See ya.
She's on top of it.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Danny.
thanks, Danny.
So we're going to have some updates from our public safety and our division directors on how the storm went. Chief Lewis, you want to come? You're listed first. I'm not throwing you under the bus first. You're just listed that way.
Yeah, I have a very short 45-minute speech. Hey, but honestly, before I get started, I want to say certainly we're going to talk about a lot of areas that could have been improved, some things that failed, and how we're going to move forward in the future. But I want to give a genuine thanks to you guys. I know some of you guys delivered food, some of you guys just phone calls and comments came by the PD. That I hope needs no improvement. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing for that. So, and some employees of mine have actually asked me to come here and thank you guys. So it's not just coming from me. Danny and Travis, just an absolute pleasure to work with. I hope that never changes as well. All right, really quick, I'll give you guys what we did pre-hurricane, during the hurricane, and after the hurricane. Just going to give you a brief overview. Before the hurricane, we tested all of our computer infrastructure to include radios, phone lines, all of our battery backup systems. We tested our facility generator twice, had that topped off. Tito finished the setup of our computer workstation, so our city EOC would be operational. We certainly charged all our portable batteries. At some point, certainly, we had our staff come in. They were not permitted to leave. We went to what we call an Alpha Bravo shift, where they were mandated to be at the police department 4 hours a day, but they only work 12-hour shifts. Again, it's tough to leave your family and leave your home, so it's nice to have that support, from you guys during that. We secured all of our outside equipment to make sure loose items and things like that weren't actually crashing into our facility. We sandbagged our own entry points, not knowing how bad the storm would be. And of course, we were communicating with Hendry County EOC and all the city departments in there. Pre-hurricane for animal services, a lot of the same things that I just mentioned. However, we had an additional effort there to rescue all the animals out, not knowing what type of damage the shelter would cause. We were trying to get as many animals out of the shelter as we could, and the plan was to pull all of our dogs inside the building just to make sure that they had a little bit more security there. We did, for a very, very small period of time, we stopped the intake of owner surrenders. We didn't want to increase the population, so we offered the community some pet food and pet supplies, anything that we could do to make their stay a little bit more comfortable, so at least they could be housed until after the storm is done. All of our folks that were on patrol, they were mandated to be out in the communities. We wanted them to be visible. We wanted to give the community that sense of security, make sure that they were available out there. While they're out there, of course, you guys know we responded to, I apologize, let me back up just a little bit. Before the hurricane, we certainly had a traffic issue. People were evacuating from Fort Myers and other areas, really clogged up US 27. I think that's apparent. I actually personally drove through coming back into the city, and of course, it took me a little while to get back. So there were a lot of comments and a lot of discussion about turning all of the traffic lights to blinking to essentially allow the flow of traffic to go faster. And we did evaluate that. We actually discussed the possibility of doing that. I know I got a call from one commissioner that there wasn't an officer at one point at an actual intersection that had flashing lights, and that there was going to be an accident. And that's a great observation because it's true. If you turn those lights to flashing, you have to have an officer there manning the intersection because with no officer, people are going to do what they want. Right? Flashing yellow, flashing red, everybody believes it's their turn. We just didn't have the staffing to actually staff all 6 intersections going through town. And even if we put our 2 or 4 officers out there with a contingent of sheriff's office employees, the reality is if we got called to a fire structure, we then would have left the intersection unmanned, still in a flashing light situation, and you would have been right back to the same thing. In addition, one of the reasons that we also didn't do it is we were getting reports that US 27 was backed up all the way through South Bay. So even if you turned all of our intersections green, you can't force the traffic in South Bay to go any faster, and it really would have created more of a problem. So even though I think from a public perception, being out there in the intersection and being visible like you're trying to do something about the problem many times creates a larger problem, and I do think that we made the right decision. So if you have any questions related to that, I'd be
Not
glad
having
to go.
an accident with that amount of traffic.
And we gauge success by that, right? I mean, traffic enforcement and traffic control is for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to reduce crashes. Because if you reduce crashes, you reduce injuries and you reduce property damage. And I'm happy to report we didn't have one traffic crash. So simply driving up and down US 27 and being seen was enough of a presence to keep the traffic flowing and not intervene and let it kind of do its thing. I mean,
Well, that was the thing. It was moving.
Correct.
I mean, it was slow, but it was
Correct.
moving.
And
So-
the DOT times those lights the way they do for a reason, to keep that moving so that you
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, I understand the frustration of people. It is what it is. Our roads were not designed to hold that volume, but
Right.
it is a short-term problem that worked itself out.
Mhm.
So I hope you guys understand the reasons
Oh,
for
yeah.
those decisions.
So Tom, in a flashing light, doesn't that make it a four-way stop? Doesn't it make it worse?
Well,
If they're all red, if it's intentional, they can do them
Okay.
all red.
yeah, and I will tell you that just driving from here over to Northport and honestly to other places to get fuel and just kind of look at things, not everybody knows that. You'd like to think they do. You'd like to think that, they're
I would have
courteous
thought
and
that would
that,
have slowed traffic worse on Highway 27 if they
yeah.
went to blinking.
Yeah.
Oh, it would have.
yeah, I would agree with Danny. Half the time they don't know what green means. Yeah. But again, I understand that was an issue. I also understand that was a continuous issue even after the storm as people were coming here for fuel. But again, sometimes when you have human intervention, it makes things worse. And so you have to kind of gauge those type of decisions there. And I think they were all done with reasonable minds. Okay. So of course, about the two fires, and I certainly don't want to steal Travis's, but there was a fire. What did you say? Go ahead. Yeah. So MCM Paint, 321 East Sugarland Avenue. We received that call about 11:30 p.m. on the 28th. We did assist in evacuating the surrounding residents with Sheriff's Office deputies. So I'd also like to thank them. I wish they were here. US 27 was shut down for that so that we could actually deal with the fire, or the fire department could. And then Little Caesars Pizza at 880 West Sugarland Highway. We got that call that came in about right around 5 a.m. on the 29th. Actually, one of our Sergeant Salgado actually reported the fire to the fire department. And in both instances, there were no occupants. So that's probably the best thing ever. Again, as far as the actual fire itself, I'll let Travis explain that.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
So the public knows there was no power in the city. Power had been cut off at 4 o'clock that afternoon. Here, and power was off that night.
Lost the feeder before
Yeah, we
sundown.
killed the feeder because I've got to be part of my stuff. But also at Little Caesars, that there is what we call primary, secondary. And you have a secondary issue that is from the transformer to the panel. And if that happens, it could be the fire inside the pipe, or it could be whatever. When you see a power line fall down and you see it burning, it's a secondary, because the substation doesn't see that to react to build it. That's telling us there was an issue from the transformer to inside.
And one other issue I'll point out to the public. So our officers stayed out on patrol until winds reach a sustained 45 miles an hour. That's pretty much a standard policy in law enforcement. But I will tell you, we didn't just shelter in place and let the community, kind of hope for the best. What we did at that point was we allowed our supervisors to actually, honestly, go outside, look at the weather conditions, and determine on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not we were going to respond. So if it was an actual emergency, clearly we would have prioritized the community's safety over our own. And that is what it is. And we did take several calls, and several calls held. Of the minor calls that held, our dispatchers logged those, and as soon as it was safe to go back outside, we prioritized those, accordingly. After the hurricane, we certainly conducted a fleet and a facility assessment on both the police department and animal services. We took pictures of a lot of visible damage. Most of the damage was roof related, but we're preparing a full report separate to this on that. We certainly offered our assistance to the fire department and to Danny here if they needed traffic control or anything such as that. We ultimately reduced staffing levels to normal. JD was very helpful. He came back to the police department. Of course, we had some communications issues. We had phone line issues. And I'll probably stop there to kind of explain a little bit about that. On the positive side, our 911 system, which is fiber, did not go down at all. Matter of fact, our 911 system became the primary 911 center for not only Clewiston, but all of Hendry County, all of Glades County, and we also took rollover calls from Lee County and Highlands County. Considering we have a pretty young, aside from Tanisha, we have a pretty young dispatch center.
Thank heavens we have that secondary PSAP, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure Glades is probably happy about that as well. But with that said, I mean, we really kind of have a younger, inexperienced staff, and to handle call volume like that, and I think they did a phenomenal job. I'm sure it comes from the wonderful training they get.
They had leaps and bounds of experience now.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, we talk about trial by fire.
Trial by
Yes.
fire, that's what I told him.
Yeah, but did a great job. We've had absolutely no issues whatsoever with that type of a call volume. So hats off to them. Animal shelter ultimately resumed back to normal operations, and since then, we currently today have 1 cat in our facility, 0 dogs. We were able to network after the facility reopened. We were able to network all of our animals down to Naples. And the reason for that is we expect to have an influx of animals because now that people are displaced, moving into hotels, moving into friends' places or parents' places, things like that, they may not be able to take their animals. And it's pretty common in the animal world that after a disaster, we see more owner surrenders. So we're prepared for that. The shelter is getting a nice deep cleaning, and I don't think we're going to skip a beat as far as our community services go. So aside from the communications issue on the 911 side, we talked about the positive. The administrative phone lines, so there's a couple of issues that we had there. The first issue is, even though we had our generator tested twice by 2 different people, we had some power fluctuation issues. And our phone lines, when they have a power fluctuation, they ultimately reboot themselves. They're not like the old landline phones where, you just pick it up and dial. They're really kind of computers. And so when they get that power fluctuation, they reboot. When they get constant power fluctuations, they almost live in this rebooting phase. And so therefore, there were times where our phone lines were down. I know Danny will probably talk about CenturyLink. CenturyLink, their backup generator didn't go on. It ultimately kicked us offline. That's another reason for some of our phone line failures. I don't know. We probably should have, again, looking back, we probably should have done some load testing on our generator, which was not completed. I guess there's several different types of tests, and the tests we were performing were more operational, making sure it was functioning, as opposed to maybe handling the load that we were asking it. So we are going to ask that a manufacturer inspection come out there and actually identify what is the load. See, next time if we can turn off a few things here and there to make sure at least our communications don't skip a beat. So that's going to happen.
Maybe they make a big surge protector.
Yeah, we're going to tape some batteries and no, I'm just kidding. We talked about the generator power. We've already reached out to our radio vendor. We're also going to have that inspection done. We want to make sure that there's no issues there. So moving forward too, I know the citywide we're going to have a critique, but our accreditation standards mandate that we do an after-action report, which internally as a police department we'll have to sit down and do a debriefing and a critique with all of our staff. So a written report will be filed in that as well. It's a great document because when you identify those solutions next storm, that's a nice template to pull from to make sure you don't make the same mistakes next time. So that's happening as well. We're considering the purchase, depending upon cost-wise, maybe Starlink or some other type of redundancy as far as internet connection. It's it's just something that we'll look at from cost perspective and with Randy. Anything else, Tito, that I'm missing? The VHF radios. Yeah, so we do have some VHF radios, which of course, as a police department, we don't use. We kept them as a redundancy. Now, 800 megahertz radios, they worked fine, right? So they didn't go down. The SLEER system stayed up. But had that gone down, we only have a very minimal number of VHF radios that we would be able to talk. So we may consider the purchase of some additional ones just to make sure we have enough redundancy there. And that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions as far as the police department or animal control?
I have a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to develop an SOP that if an officer responds to a transformer humming, smoking, burning, that the electrical department should be contacted immediately and not wait for fire department to call them out.
Agreed.
And I think that needs to be put in writing. Randy,
Okay. That's a good suggestion to consider.
without getting into details.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you guys very much again.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
just I know it's not a personal time, but the chief had some personal stress during this. I was up there and at the EOC, and all the things worked. And I was really proud that we were able to continue functioning and support the county. And it does, I'm sure the mayor will comment because she was there as well. It does support the concept of having redundancy on both sides of the county, if you will, or in two places in the county for emergency communication, so that you can do something like this. I shudder to think how we would have been before this new system and equipment was available. It would have not been a good situation.
And on top of that, a relationship with the county where we can work together.
Yes, and worked well together. Always little things you can improve on, and we'll make that on the checklist of things we want to do. Communication, particularly, is always a challenge. But I did want to you to know that Chief, he went through some personal difficulties during this time. He and several others involved in the process, and they handled it very professionally. And I know he didn't go home for a while. And
I appreciate that.
I thank you for that.
And on the relationship end, we continue to have a great relationship with the sheriff's office, quite frankly. Actually, the sheriff's office used our building. We didn't activate the EOC, as you guys know. The sheriff's office was actually operating out of our conference room so that way they could let their night shift sleep in the substation here. So we're continuing that great working relationship. I mean, the sheriff he's really honestly an easy guy to work with. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I think the redundancy station problem is Fort Myers got it. That is the main bad.
Correct.
I think what we need to do if we do redundancy, we go to the East Coast.
Right.
They have a fiber.
Yeah, but that's exactly what me and Tito were talking about earlier. Yep.
That way, storms.
What about
Good
Crown
idea.
Castle? I know that they laid
That's who
five.
we have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who we have, and,
Okay.
and that worked fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Crown Castle stayed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even the Hendry County EOC, their backup generator didn't work for about an hour and a half. It doesn't matter, and they had it serviced 2 days before. And I mean, so it's kind of, sometimes you can help it, sometimes you can't, but there's definitely things here, I think, that we can improve upon to make sure that we don't run into the same problems next time, for sure.
You talked about people stopping by to see, and at least one of us moved in. But that was invaluable to be there, because then I got to see, I did not realize the depth of Tito's knowledge, where all of the computers and the phones, I was absolutely amazed at that, and we need to play on that moving forward.
I will tell you, when it comes to IT and communications type stuff, he's definitely our in-house subject matter expert.
Well,
Yeah.
and we're going to expand his role to backup for the whole city, because I think he proved himself quite a bit. And we need a backup because JD was on vacation.
Yes.
He came back and did a lot of stuff, or did it remotely while he was on vacation, and I really appreciate that and thanked him today. But we do need a backup on site for those kind of things that we normally rely on that single person.
He definitely has a skill set.
Oh yeah, I was
sure.
You got more
absolutely
work.
See what you got
astonished.
yourself into, Tito.
The phone system.
Yes.
The phone system. Now we always used to say a landline, a hard line. They're all fiber optic now, right? Even if I have an old rotary phone plugged in the wall.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I
think
think
would
that
work.
maybe in the fire station and in the police department, there should be. There should be.
Oh, you're saying the standard.
A standalone, yes, a standalone that's for emergencies, that that if they're back out of the water again in LaBelle, there's at least going to be one phone where you can get a hold of an emergency manager somewhere within the EOC. And
I definitely get where you're coming from. I think with Danny's idea of having a redundancy that's in a completely different location, I think would maybe solve that issue.
okay,
I do.
all right.
I'll say that I think it's time we look at those phones we talked about.
And Tito can comment on that. We have some of those, right? I think Vice Mayor had brought it
For
up
first
about.
responders, they never meter down the signal. They get first.
You're talking
priority.
about AT&T FirstNet?
Mhm.
Yeah, we have that at the police
I
department.
checked on it after you commented. They do already have those,
Yeah.
Yep.
but not everybody's got them.
Correct. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, just appreciate everything you did.
But same goes here. Thank you. Randy,
And it's a
anything else?
learning experience. We'll learn from it, but that just like that example of that rebooting time, because people were getting busy signals for non-emergency calls, and that's not a good situation because you don't want them to flood the 911 calls with non-emergencies. People are pretty well trained on that, so it is going to be something we'll figure a way out. But it is one of those that hadn't happened before, so.
Right.
Yeah. One good thing about the Crown Castle conversion we did last year is we still had, once power was on, we still had our internal communication by phone. You just couldn't use your cell phone. It wasn't. They couldn't hear you or couldn't call you back.
So really and truly, this is the first time we've had the voice over IP during a storm, and so it's before it was just a regular phone line going into the police department,
Mm-hmm.
into the utilities. Yeah. Yeah, we were definitely down there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And we may have some more questions as we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Travis,
Yeah, that'll be
and Chief. Chief Riesel, follow.
Briefly, I'll try to keep it under 45 minutes. That was 42. It was fine. Travis Reese, fire marshal, fire chief, building official. Well, it's been a while since we had a storm. Maybe this was just a tropical storm. I'll say that, but they're serious. Hurricane Wilma was the last time we had some significant wind come through here, so resiliency has been built in a little bit for the damage we had then. We rebuilt to our codes. We're proud of that. We're proud of making folks get the permits that they need, get them built to today's standard. Even if it takes years before you have those next events, that resiliency is built in. So I just want to start with that preparation of our infrastructure is key. And I mean infrastructure, even the residents, the commercial buildings, all that ties together. It all affects us as a community. Storm approach. On Sunday, we were notified that there would possibly be a hurricane strike somewhere in the state of Florida. Monday at 6 p.m., we went into a tropical storm watch. Tuesday at 8:30, that tropical storm warning was issued for Hendry County and forecast for tropical storm winds and heavy rain. Thank goodness we didn't see a lot of the heavy rains. So we are blessed in many ways. Tuesday at noon, it didn't take long for them to upgrade us from not only a tropical storm warning, but to a hurricane watch. But with that being as far inland as we were, best guesses was about 10% chance of that. And of course, you all know that didn't happen. Our maximum sustained winds were 58 miles per hour. Preparation, similar to the police department, we had to call in all of our personnel. We had to make ready. We had to make sure that we had staffing for the station, make sure all our supplies were checked, our medical supplies, our firefighting foam, make sure that our breathing air, and you never know how badly and desperately you're going to need that, was 100%. So we basically just dump all the bottles with old air that was in them, repump it with new, so that was only hours old. We did deplete 100% of that, by the way. Our rehab
How
truck was also
fortuitous.
completely wiped out, even it couldn't generate anymore. With the power going down, we do anticipate these things. We don't think it'll ever happen, but when the power went down, we went into generation mode. Well, Cascade system that we use is a 3-phase. We only have single phase, of course, for our generator for the station, which handles everything except for that particular piece. So we were able to handle it. So that can't run we're in generation mode. The next day, our power came back on. We were able to repump. So we were good there. Even though it was a close call, I think it's still within acceptable limits to keep it the way it is. We were able to function with it. We also had to recheck our generators. Public Works does a good job checking those and make sure they're run weekly. I know they're short staff out there. Our staff went ahead and rechecked that on Monday night. As I mentioned, we became staffing. We went to full staffing after 7 p.m. on Tuesday. We also have a no-go policy after 45 mile per hour winds. The officer in charge of the station will make determination because that is an increased risk mission, increased risk of life loss or injury to our personnel. With that, they did perform after, well, let me back up. They had 23 calls for service after the storm began. That was up to the 45 mile per hour limit. So they run 23 calls for service there. And then after that, after 45 miles per hour, they ended up doing 3 rescues. They had a cardiac, an OD, which originally came in as a electrocution, they thought. Turned out it was just an OD, still serious. We were able to get him transported to the hospital. We also had just accidents will happen, even not storm related. We had one of our elderly citizens in the county fell, tripped over her dog, and broke her hip. And it was very difficult in a difficult situation where winds were exceeding 45 miles per hour. But after the first unit arrived, we decided, yes, we're going to have to get this person out. And she was taken to an area where she could be aired. There are times that we just have to go out. We tell the folks, and so the public knows, we won't go out unless it is life or death, but you really are on your own in a hurricane situation or even a heavy tropical storm situation. So those are case-by-case basis. Do not anticipate that those emergency services will come to you. 45 miles per hour is not based upon what the trucks can handle or what an individual can stand up in the wind and rain. It's based upon the debris and the amount of debris that's going to be flying around when we ask those folks to go into harm's way. Something as simple as a piece of tin or a shingle can be a fatality. It doesn't care that you have a bunker coat on and a big fire helmet or a Kevlar vest. We all think we're Superman. We try, but the reality is we're all citizens. We're all out there trying to help each other. But there comes a time where you just have to really weigh the risk versus benefit of sending folks into harm's way. Forest fires, we did have 2 major events, actually 3, but 2 within the city. We had an 8,000 square foot hardware store, which also serves as a paint mixing facility. They don't mix the paint in that particular building, but they do keep a lot of their supplies there. So when we got the call to that building, it was, I believe, at 11:30. It was fully involved. It was already showing through the roof in the back. We had to immediately go to a defensive posture, pull back. We had small aerosol cans that were lighting off. A large fire, but these were becoming missiles. They were actually going into the neighborhood behind. Because of the nature of this fire, there was a lot of toxic smoke as this begins to burn. So kudos to the police department. I know the sheriff's department did assist, so thank you for them too. But they did an excellent job going into this toxic smoke door to door to get these folks evacuated. And I didn't have to worry. I know it got done. I didn't have to worry about a rally point. The police department took the lead on that. They found a place for these folks to go, whether it's parked in their car or parking lots, got them out of harm's way, allowed us to do what we needed to try to suppress that situation, to try to control the fire. Again, it was completely defensive. Our main concern was make sure we did not lose any residents to the north. The winds at the time that we were fighting it were excessive 45 miles per hour. But because of the life safety issue of the folks that were in those homes, we felt it necessary to do so. The flames had died down below 45 when we had the next call, which was the Royals Plaza. And that's over 100,000 square foot building. So that's a very major economic center of Clewiston. A lot of businesses there. The fire did spread to many of the businesses there. It was extinguished, I would say, within an hour of getting on scene. Palm Beach County did respond. The winds had dropped low enough that they could assist us with that one. They could not with the hardware store. But they brought their ladder over, an invaluable piece of equipment. I know you've heard me talk before that most public, when they hear a ladder truck, they think it's servicing something. It's 70 feet in the air, and the bulk of these ladder trucks are not used at rescuing or fighting fire in those large, tall buildings. Again, resiliency is built into those buildings. Not that you won't have to use them there. That's their purpose. But you will use them in the life of a ladder truck. It gets used more on single-story buildings being able to get that master stream at a safe elevation to put it down over the roof. So, and that's what happened with the Royals Plaza. We had to put, with our capabilities, we have to put men on the roof, sounding the roof in the dark. To give you a kind of a visual, they go 2 by 2. They have their axe, they have a Halligan bar, they have a pike pole, and they use that to sound that roof. And when they get to that spot where it's soft or the sound changes, they know don't step there. And their life depends on that. Now, that's not 100% that there's not compromised ceiling there, but that's what they have to work with. So when we had the loss of that electrical fire behind there, those winds were still high. They were below the 45, but it was still pushing. So that quickly spread through the roof of that building. It caught a couple of the rooftop units, the air conditioning units on fire, which then put the smoke into the building below. So there's a lot of smoke damage, some fire damage. It affected 8 businesses in that shopping center, and 6 of them were fire and smoke, 2 were electrical. And as Mr. Williams was just speaking about, the bank is also one of those. They hope to be back up because their electrical issues were just because their meter and their main were located in that vicinity. They were far enough removed structurally. They weren't damaged. They had no smoke damage, but they were damaged. Their electrical system was damaged by the proximity of the fire. We also had a mobile home fire after daylight, almost about 11 o'clock that day. So we were a little tired, but that's okay. We'll respond. That was at Horseshoe Acres. It was a total loss, but it's technically Glades County, but you got to come into Henry County to get there. So of course, anytime there's a fire like that, it may be Glades, but they are still citizens. We consider citizens of this community, and we will respond. And everyone was tired, LaBelle included. They responded, and actually LaBelle took the lead on fighting that fire. So we're very appreciative. So, any questions? And let me do say, post-storm, thank you very much to the police department. Chief, I appreciate it. We typically, our role, if there's not significant damage, we do our windshield surveys, we report back. We were not able to do that. We were at maximum capacity. So as the storm receded, the winds dropped. The police department was very much an asset to us, to the community. Kudos to them. Appreciate it. It was a very good team effort. Thank you, Manager Martin, for your support. I think it went well. God was on our side. The rains didn't come, and the wind stayed manageable. But things do happen, and that's what I'm here to report to you today. That bad things will happen. We'll face it. We'll face it together, and we'll move forward.
Appreciate everything those guys did. That was quite an effort. Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate our volunteer fire department.
Yep.
No
I'll
doubt.
put you up against a paid department any day.
So I'm very proud of it, and I will definitely
You
carry
should
that
be.
back to the
Yeah.
firefighters.
Travis, you mentioned that the length of time on the fire at the Royals Plaza, but what was the length of time on the other fire?
Oh, we did
I mean,
not
the main
have.
part.
We didn't have it under control till almost, I think, 03:20, probably almost 3:30, about 3:30 in the morning. So that took probably 4 hours before we could safely say that it was under control and there was no other danger to the neighborhood.
That was on MCM.
That was MCM, correct. Pretty quickly on the once we got hand lines up and a crew up on top of the Royals Plaza, we were quickly able to determine the fire. We could knock it down pretty quickly, and as soon as the ladder truck from 74 from South Bay arrived, we were able to access the pizza little dome above that building and extinguish that, because fire had gotten into that. We couldn't get to it. It just wasn't safe to try to do that off ladders.
Most
Ladder
of the
truck.
others were just smoke damage.
Most smoke damage. And it really, I think it was the burning of the AC units. Once that tar, and if you can imagine that, once that got spread through all those businesses, it goes through those rooftop units, smoke just dumps down to the inside. So even though, say like Cato's, I know they have significant smoke damage to their product. Even though you look at the store, it looks pretty good. You go further, Buddy's, the rest they have structural damage. I mean, that fire was so hot, it literally cracked the blocks. So they're going to have a structural engineer take a look at that. We're going to get most of them back on. I was telling you this, that's 9 businesses total. And one of our very large shopping centers. I tell you, that hardware store was sorely missed.
Ace was overwhelmed and depleted. You could find anything electrical in there for a generation, or because a lot of our neighbors that were on the coast, this is the first civilization they found when they come here, and they wiped those out. And the owner actually told me on After Action, I'll share this with you and publicly, that he had stocked up on generators knowing that people would possibly come looking for them from the coast. And as we extinguished the fire, if you told us that, and we were doing mop up in the daylight, we could see them stacked so nice and neatly in his display area, completely lost. So it is a large economic loss to the city even now, but he's indicated he will rebuild. You'll see an application, I think, from him very shortly to rezone the lot behind him. He may want to reach into that. That's now part of 27 corridor.
Your ability to save those two houses behind there, I think, was an absolute. That tells me what the effort was. That grass was
Right.
If you rode
was
by, you'll notice
singed
that.
all the way to, but you could see it was green where the hose had been. That tree
Good eye.
was singed beyond, but neither one of those houses had any.
That's just 101 structure protection, and plus the guys, even with all that going on behind them, they put a curtain,
care
a
of that,
wall
yeah.
of water on that building to make sure that even the vinyl siding, there was very little damage to that building to the
That was a
northeast.
Herculean effort. That was.
But just by coating that and keeping it at bay. But those 12 or 16 ounce paint cans where it looked like the 4th of July as they were shooting to the neighborhood to the north. Just keep in mind, it's blowing at 45 miles per hour. Maybe it was, I don't know if we got to 58 while we were there. I don't know. We had lost track of our weather reports at that point. But the smoke and heat were leaving the top of the building and exiting almost horizontally. Nothing was going up. It was all going to the neighborhoods. Yeah. I don't know if it had been more economical. That was an expensive loss.
And you had to go back to that structure a number of times.
Many times. Correct. The roof had collapsed down on top of it, and the fuel load is there. You have heat, oxygen, fuel. We can't take away the fuel. So the triangle is there. All it needs is the heat. One spark, you get it out. We flowed massive amounts of water, but you can only do so much. And then as you see your hot spots come back, it will reignite. The paint thinners, the alcohols, and then of course the acid bases mixed together. You have spontaneous and exothermal combustion.
Stormwater there.
The fire's out. That's what we're going to say. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay. Director of Operations will fill you in on all the various areas of responsibility that he reports to him, and he's covered a couple things already, but he was another trooper out there with these guys and others, and so go for it, Danny.
Yeah, Danny Williams, Director of Operations. I just want to say, Chief, Tito, Travis, and you, Mr. Martin, and you guys, this ran smooth. We were all able to do our jobs, and we know what we're doing, each and every one of us, and people weren't on top of us or anything, so we accomplished a lot. Talk about hardening the system. One of the things we've been doing, and I'm very proud of, is hardening the electric system. And anytime we take this kind of wind, I had one feeder that got knocked out, and it was due to a tree. All our outages, every single outage we had was a tree-related outage. So hardening, we didn't lose any feeders except one, which that tree will be removed because we would have been 100%. And with our outage report going to 1,800, that 900 of that was pretty much that feeder. We killed that feeder that night just to be safe. And that's one of the things I wish we had at least put half. But hey, when the winds kicked up, we have to sit down, like Travis says. When it's 45 miles an hour, we have to shut the trucks down. But what impresses me is we found out we got about 2,300 poles. We lost 2 poles and 1 burned. So again, 3 poles, and when you got gusting of 70-mile-an-hour winds, is pretty impressive for those guys. But I tell you what we are going to do is we're going to increase the tree program because that's where we really will clean this up. Again, we got other stuff, older things to do, but it really, I was impressed. And I was impressed with the staff and the people that from Alabama and Michigan that came and supported us, and FMEA again supporting us also, and with Lynn Mila on the phone, which has kind of worked. Again, that's kind of our redundancy. When she's on the East Coast and we're over here and we lose communications, she's got communications and she continues to communicate with Orlando. Some of the things we did to prepare is, like they said, the generators. We tested all generators for all facilities. The water plant, sewer plant, thank goodness we got a new one. Sewer plant never went down. And a good thing, too, for the water plant, when they needed their water, the water was there. We didn't have any issues. So those are the things we prepped. We do have our spare generators. We put 7 generators out throughout our sewer system, which was a plus. And something I'd like to mention, too, is we have a generator sitting in LaBelle to support that city, and we have one in Lake Placid. So we are supporting people. So we are able, once we got power back up, we can start giving out our equipment. So also, one of the things I noticed in our sewer system, I think one of the issues we have is once everyone's home, flows get really heavy. And I think the design, what I'm figuring out, is the force mains. We had struggled with 2 lift stations. We kept them going, but the problem was they couldn't pump because of the flows. And I think I really found out, like Saginaw, we have what we call a 4-inch force main, where you got 2 10-horsepower motors in there pumping into a 4-inch. Well, then you got Ridgeview, which is pumping toward that, and then you have a couple of those other areas that pump to Saginaw. So it can only take so much that's going out, and which has helped me, because when we get into the 3rd phase of the I&I program, we're going to change that. We had the same thing sort of going toward leaving Esperanza. We was having an issue because of that flow coming in. It's about 80 manholes that come to that lift. That's a primary lift station there. We were having issues to get it down. But again, we're looking at the force main. It starts out an 8, goes to a 6, it goes down to a 4, back to an 8, which doesn't make sense. It's like a water pressure type deal, not for sewer. But these are the things I think going through this storm has helped us. And those few little things we can tweak now. We know what caused. Like if we get rid of those, we get those force mains in, the next storm we have, and we have our generators, we're going to be fine. Our sewer system will run. The sewer plant, again, it's got a new generator, so it never went down, and everything was good. Now, those oxidation ditches, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're just big, round, open rain gauges is what I call them. So when we get 6 inches of rain, our numbers aren't really too good. So anyway, so we were good there. We were also good at the water plant. Again, I can't say enough about the staff in preparing for the storm. Public Works, what they did there was go out and tie everything down in the parks. They removed a lot of the cans. They also mainly maintained the parks and stuff. But after the storms, I was very impressed at how they cleaned the town. They did Royal Ponce de Leon, Central, all the main corridor roads, but they also cleaned up the parks. The very next day after the storm, the parks were clean. So hats off to those guys for prepping and cleaning the city the way they did. One of the things, too, again, what we do to prep, I'll go back to that, the electric department, what we do, we make sure all trucks are fueled, everything works, all the equipment, make sure we have inventory, poles, which we always do, transformers, whatever we might need. On the water sewer, the same thing. Wastewater pumps, whatever we might need. Every fuel, all the trucks are fueled. So, again, that's kind of where we prep to get ready for the storms. What I'm really impressed, we didn't get much structural damage with the winds we've had. A consistent 40, 45 mile an hour gusting to 70, I believe is what one person told me.
88.
88
reported today.
Okay, so that's even better. We had very, very little structure damage. We have taken pictures, but again, everything held quite well. I think we had a little damage at the Trinidad Pavilion, some at the baseball field, and then pretty much that's about it. Again, like I say, the staff put everything back out. And one of the things I want to talk about too is garbage, so everybody will know. We did lose. Lee County did lose both transfer stations, so it became an issue. So what we did today, we figured out, because Felda is about 50 miles away, so we worked with another county, and we're going to go another direction, which is probably about 25 miles. And a couple of trucks are old, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little nervous them traveling that far. And again, it takes, when they pick the city up, these trucks, They dump about twice. So that's telling me I'm not going to finish. So I was starting to think, okay, am I going to do this side of town one day and change? So that was kind of the process we were thinking. But instead, we went another direction, try to get something closer. And we're going to run 3 trucks, and they're going to run tomorrow. They'll start at 6. Next week, we will go back to normal Monday through Thursday. But we'll do what we can to get it up. And again, like I say, all the equipment, hats off to our mechanic. He's got them running. So I think we're in good shape. I didn't hear much today about it, but again, I think we'll be okay. Again, it'll save fuel. It's a shorter run. It's going to cost us a little more, but we have prep for that. So the debris, as we spoke, we do have a contractor in place, and he may be here Wednesday. He's working on getting some local contractors. And again, please stress to people to separate these piles because they will not pick it up, and then that's going to become something special. I think that's pretty much it. Again, I was very impressed with everyone and the staff, Public Works, everybody, the water department, water sewer. I think some of the things too, repairing some of the drains and we have started a little bit. That has helped us some in certain areas. It looks like Interland did a good job. I did check Ventura out, and there was no water. So, especially after what we got. So they've been working hard, and that's helped us also. Again, the communications and the support from the PD and Travis communicating with us, and again, Mr. Martin and Mayor, you handling the calls and briefing us and keeping us updated was fantastic. I was very impressed.
The 2 trees that created the issue for the outages for you, those were royal palms.
Yes, right at the youth center. It snapped there.
And we had no problems with those.
None of the other feeders, they were perfect. The tree company has definitely helped us. That's the first time of any storm I've known the feeders have stayed up. And your city stayed up.
I had kids talking about it today.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is our first 60 that went out, we killed the power to make a repair. And there's another thing, it was in a certain area, our trucks, we got 4-wheel drive trucks. That's one reason we got it. And we got stuck. So we'll look into that. It was a county area. We'll figure that out because that slowed us. I mean, that caused us, we would have had feeder 2 up, but we got stuck and that kind of delayed us a little bit. So those are little things we look at and try to clear up the next time. But prepping for these things, I told somebody, I don't know, it was Mr. Martin the other day, it's like playing a baseball game every 10 years, and without practicing. You never know what a storm's going to bring. Fort Myers, look what they got, and look what we got. I mean, it's a difference. Some individuals told me that the concrete poles were broken. So
A lot of them.
they're not going concrete. Anyway, you got anything for me?
Quick question on the folks that came in that you mentioned. How many folks came in to help us out through FMPA?
There was it was 3 crews basically. I mean, there was 8 from one, or I'm sorry, 6 and then 2. But it was a total of 4 trucks, which helped us tremendously. They're when these guys come, they're good. They don't mess around. So, but it cuts our time. I think we were down we were 100% up 2 days, except for the minor stuff. Again, I'm very impressed. I call my guys are like little ants. They're a small bunch, but they're mean.
They're over everything.
It became like the joke on the EOC call,
Yeah.
where they were talking about how quickly you got it all up and running.
Yeah. I mean, they are good. They take pride in what they do.
Yeah, I had to defend them on one of the first calls. They were
Right.
talking about the unreliability of the Clewiston electric, but we got that corrected
Quickly.
because there is a big Clewiston address that includes other providers. No,
Right.
no criticism
Outside
of
the
them
city
intended,
limits.
but outside the city that we do not serve, and I'm sure that gets attached to us at times, but.
Randy probably got a few text messages.
But we got it fixed.
Randy.
Got that viewpoint corrected, and then they started questioning whether we were actually at 0. But as Danny pointed out, we had some individual properties that no longer have power, but that's because they had damages on their side that's got to be repaired before we can re-energize it. But it was nice to see our 0 reported as early as anybody's in the state that was impacted.
Danny, I do have one question that has nothing to do with the storm, but it made me think about it. Is that, I know when the city utility line goes to a home, right?
Mhm.
It's usually an aerial. It has been in the past.
Right.
Are we encouraging folks to bury, I think the cost is about the same.
We tell them what we do. Your primary is your feeders first. Of course, feeder 3 with the hospitals, and then you got the fire station, which we target those first, and then. But what we tell them is this is what we do, and this is how we'll go to the main feeders, secondaries, and then all of a sudden we come back. You're going to see a truck ride right by you.
Mm-hmm.
He's repairing what's by you, and then you're going to say, "Hey, what about mine?" No, that's down the line. We come, we'll get that later. Service lines are last. Mr. Martin's going underground.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was just thinking. When some folks go back aerial, I'm just thinking it would be better for them to go back underground.
No question.
About the cost is about
No
the
question.
same. from what
We
it-
lost nothing where we were buried.
Yeah, and all
Nothing.
new construction is required.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
fortunately,
Just the
that
older
helps
section.
eliminate it over time. But in an opportunity like this, particularly if they are getting insurance payments or whatever that's being done, they certainly should strongly consider it. There may be examples that wouldn't apply, but in most cases, it is certainly to their advantage because that's just one less weak point in the system. It's like us doing our I&I and sewer, where it's going to go to the weakest point, and tree limbs or anything can take down a service line to a house that's above ground. Anything can knock it down.
We had one water break. And it was a tree.
Yeah, tree pulled it up.
So my crew took it out. They couldn't repair the line, so they took the tree out and they're like ants too. There's 4 of them, and they're constantly going. I can tell you, I'm blessed. I got a great group of guys and ladies. Very supportive. I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danny. Please thank everybody.
Okay, if I could, I'd like to just summarize with a few comments. One, been at this a lot longer than I probably should be, and remembering these things. I've been through dozens of these kind of events, had near misses, direct hits. Every one of them was pointed out as unique, but it does bring back my original training when I decided on this as a career, that one of our primary, the historical and municipal government, why it exists, is public health, safety, and welfare. And this storm, and it's hard not to be emotional when you think about how some of our sister cities are impacted and the people who've lost everything, their lives included. It really is a sobering experience. But looking at this particular storm, all it would have taken is a few different digits on a longitude or latitude, and we would be there. And no man-made structure, we've seen that, can survive the onslaught of category 4 to 5 winds and storm surge. Obviously, storm surge is less of a concern here, except from those relationships to the lake and that large body of water that we live next to. But there is nothing that we can do to stop for that. The best we can do is prepare. Danny doesn't give himself nearly enough credit for what they've done this year, and that's no criticism of what was done in the past. It's just we've applied more resources to trying to take care of some of these resiliency issues like trees. I know residents get upset when we cut them back and gut them. Some people think we destroy the beauty of them. So be it. We have to do that to make it less likely that the winds are going to take it down. You've heard these stories of sustained winds less than 50 miles an hour. Just double that, and it would be far more than double the damage. And it exponentially goes up. If you see a demonstration of what a wind is like when it's in the 140 to 150 mile an hour range, I shudder to think what could happen in a case like we just had a near miss. Add to it the corridor that was west of us, northwest of us, that had 18 to 20-inch rains during a relatively short period of time. Then the post that we're experiencing now with water coming back down and filling up the lake. overwashing the rivers. I know near the chief's home, he had that concern. I-75 was closed after the hurricane because of that, breaches in that waterway system. So it's just so many variables to it you can't predict, but it is a blessing that we did not receive the worst of it. We will do our best to support and assist our sister cities who have helped us in the past, but there's not enough resources in the local, state, whatever, and thank goodness the federal government will step in and fill a big void. From a financial standpoint, we will have to go through the process. It's going to be a lengthy period. We hope that in the county, and we are working together to ensure that we check all the boxes, put ourselves in a position to maximize reimbursements. But this is why you have reserves. The board spent a huge amount of time in this budget cycle, and you probably have taken some tough hits on it politically from people who don't understand why the city needs to have money for reserves. But this is as good an example as you can have, because we could have had millions of dollars of expense staring us down. Now I think we're going to stay six-figure or so, which is great, but this county is going to have a lot of expenditures, and we believe it will check all the boxes, meet all the criteria to get full reimbursement if the state and the feds work out the shared formula on that. But fortunately, the state's in a good financial position to do that. The feds will make it happen, I'm sure, since they print money. But all in all, it's another one of those good examples. But I couldn't be more proud of this board, this staff, the citizens of this community, how resilient they are and have proven themselves to be, that we make it work somehow. And I'm glad to be a part of it. It wasn't something that was intimidating, but I found myself a couple of times really feeling it. You can get it in you and it wells up, and it's hard to control those emotions because you really feel for the people that are hurting. And certainly our prayers and wishes go out to them. But I'm really glad that we're in a position we're in. We've got a lot to do. As Danny said, we'll be in the next few days giving a firm announcement, but we'll be coming around to get all this yard waste. We need to make sure we're diligent to get people to prepare it, because, and some people don't understand that it's not like our regular garbage where it all ends up in maybe the same landfill. This is different. This is going to be placed at airport property. The county's set aside. They've graciously agreed for us to use that so that we don't have to mobilize our approved site that U.S. Sugar partners with us to have, and the city's used in the past at the old airport next to the golf course, because there's a lot of efficiencies by having fewer sites. It's not far away, so time won't be the issue that Danny described in solid waste. But the beauty of that arrangement is we both are using the same contractors. We both have the same monitoring firm based on your renewal of their agreement tonight that had recently expired with the renewals allowed. We didn't have to go out and beat the drum to find a contractor, have them obligated. They're obligated to us. They're here. We met with them on Friday and had a really cordial meeting. Now the real work comes, but they're going to bring in enough equipment. They're going to knock us out in a fairly quick sweep. Then they'll come back probably for a second sweep. But people really, those listening and see our advertisements and the media releases we're doing today and put out today on our social media, check that, because it's got much more detail. It's got illustrative photos of how to prepare. But the big thing is it can't be placed in that airport landfill, that temporary site that's going to be there, anything except yard waste and vegetative debris, because it's going to be chipped or mulched or whatever ends up doing an approved method. So we're not going to pick it up. And as Danny said, this is free. This is at no cost to the locals. If you've got a troublesome tree limb or tree that needs to come down on the property, now's the time. Get it out. We're going to look at doing that on some city properties as well. just because it helps build that resilience and minimize the number of interruptions we'll have in the future to our power and anything else like water lines and so forth. We'll work through those. We will do this post-event analysis and try to address the ones we can, knowing that there'll be a new set of challenges probably the next time around. But we don't know how quickly that's going to happen the next time. I'm not going to talk about what might happen because I don't have the crystal ball to figure it out. But we've got to be prepared, and I think we were pretty well prepared this time with some of the enhancements that have been made in communications and other areas in recent years. Facility-wise, we're very fortunate, but there's more work to be done, and we'll keep plugging at it. I do appreciate the attitude of all the folks involved in the community, because I've had nothing but really positive. A few people were very emotional about being out of power and so forth, but some of them even called back to say they really appreciated how quickly we were able to get those services restored in and out of the city where we serve. And that's a direct testament again to the staff we have. There will be a number of post-storm things that we've got to do, and we'll keep pursuing those. The finance department will be on it, and we're already doing all the documentation, which is so critical to qualify for reimbursement. But at some point in time, we hope to be made whole again. The unfortunate things, the aftermath, the impacts this is going to have for insurances, availability and policies and costs. A lot of negative things come with it, but hopefully some positives will follow along. But I'll stop and answer any questions you may have on this or anything related. If there are none, thank you. And that concludes our assessment for this call meeting or special meeting tonight. Do hope citizens will follow the information and take advantage of the one-time opportunity we have to maybe mitigate some future damages if they've got a situation on their property that needs addressing from terms of trees and things.
Thank you, Randy. Comments?
I'd just like to say the results of this hurricane wasn't by accident. Thank God the city had the foresight to invest in our infrastructure. Doing that isn't fun. It's very expensive. It's not cutting ribbons and the nice things. It's the hard thing to do. And thank God the city had the foresight to do that. And this is a direct result of it. Just one result. There'll be more in the future. Couldn't be more proud of the staff. Definitely worked as a team. Can't say more about the leadership. You have managers and you have leaders. I think we are not lacking in the leadership in any of our departments, and working together, communicating, appreciate it. And everybody keep the West Coast in your prayers.
Well said.
Commissioner Gardner? Yes, I have several things to say. Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with former Commissioner Rodriguez called me on Saturday, and he wanted to convey to each of the chiefs and to Danny and to Randy that he could, even though he's not here in the city any longer, he has a business here, his son has a business, and he could be prouder of Clewiston and how they responded, how we responded overall to every area of the issues that came up during the storm. And he wanted to, and I told him that I would not just tell y'all privately. I wanted to tell y'all publicly that even though he is not here in the town, he saw the work that was done on fires, on the traffic, on the regular calls, on utilities, and how things came back so quickly. And so I just wanted to share his comments that he was just very proud of the city of Clewiston and the work that was done. A lot this weekend and today I heard about a lot of the local churches are gathering supplies and donations to take over to churches and to, I'm not sure exactly, but there is a way to get things over to the West Coast. So I encourage everybody to, find out. I think probably on Facebook, a lot of churches have posted that they're gathering, whether it's water, diapers, health, sanitary issue products, whatever it is. So I encourage everybody to do a little bit. I think all of us together can help out many through the churches. As the storm, we started hearing the briefings and more information. One of the things I was ever so thankful for was that through the years, the state of Florida came up with large amounts of funds, $200 million at a time, along with the federal government, to secure the Herbert Hoover Dike. Because that threat that we've had for so many years has been removed because that cutoff wall has been completed. So we saw what storm surge can do. Some of us were here during Hurricane Wilma, and we saw how quickly that wind action could have toppled over the levee. And I'm just ever so thankful, especially to Senator Scott when he was our governor, and how he started that process of putting more and more money in a faster manner than what the projects called for to make sure it got done in an expedited manner. And that today, when we went through that, was such a blessing, knowing that that cutoff wall was there and that is not something that we have to worry about. So I'm thankful for the state and the federal government for their work on infrastructure, which is, that role, and just like with the city's role. And I thought about that. I thought about many years ago, going back to 1925 when the city was formed, that those, our forefathers, those who were making decisions at that time, envisioned a self-sustaining town, that we had each department in place to make sure that we could take care of our own, not just on everyday life. It becomes more critical when it's emergency management and emergency issues, because we know that during a storm, everybody's impacted differently, and we can't rely on another town, another county to come to our rescue, because a lot of times they unfortunately are going through the same thing. And so we've learned over the years that we have to take care of our own. And again, we learned it well during Wilma, and we learned it some in Irma, but ever so much, what we've just gone through, and we have seen today with the updates that you all have given us, how each department is critical, and Randy, I know that with your leadership and what you have done, you've worked with each of these, and the experience that each of the departments has served the city well, but it had not been that insight of our forefathers to make sure that we had a fire department, volunteer fire department, a utilities department, a police department, our own code enforcement, our own recreation facilities, just overall everything. And I'm sure I'm probably leaving a department out here, but public works, all of that was critical, because we could have over the years gone to other providers to provide those services to us. And when we looked at that, and especially the cost of outsourcing some of these things, we would not be the community we are today, and especially in a storm situation, we would not be where we're at. So again, I just applaud our forefathers and what they did, knowing that we had to take care of ourselves. Our location has a lot to do with it, because of the fact where we're located at, and we're not a huge county. I'm just thankful for their wisdom, that they had the foresight to bring us to where we're at today. Thank you. And I'm proud to be a part of the team. Thank y'all.
Me too.
So I'll just probably say ditto to all of you guys. I have maybe a little bit of a different perspective, because I learned so much. I've never seen, our fire department have to work like they did. Danny was quick to walk me through any and every power question that came to me. And then, working with Tom and his guys, I've never had the opportunity to see the city function this way. So thank you for all that you did. I don't know any different. So my experiences are all good with you guys. So just thank you, seriously, from the bottom of our heart. And I'll echo what Molly said about the federal and the state money. On one of our calls at some point, it was brought up that, isn't it interesting that no one has questioned the integrity of the levy? You know, it was never brought up, which I think we are very, very fortunate for, you know, for that we no longer even have to wonder, you know, about the levy, at least not in that type of, at least not in the type of situation that we found ourselves in recently. So thank you guys. And then my other comments are for the public. I know that groceries, household items are becoming, you know, it's becoming a little bit of a scary topic for, you know, all of our families, all of us sitting here. When we look at the shelves at Walmart or Save-A-Lot, or, you know, you're trying to find milk, not all of our residents have the ability and the means to go, you know, east over to Wellington and buy their groceries and things like that. So I just have a couple of updates from some of our stores. I spoke with Save-A-Lot this morning, and they did get a delivery last night. It did not have milk. You know, that's going to be a little bit of a problem, but I have an update for you on that as well. But they're receiving meat and they're receiving produce at Save-A-Lot. At Walmart, the same thing. They got very little meat, but they got like 14 pallets of produce. All of the stores tell me that for our people, because obviously we need to be hospitable to the folks that are having to come into our community to meet their essential needs as well. But we have to bear in mind that, you know, our role is to make sure that our citizens can get what they need too, you know. So for us locally, the best time, if you tell people that are asking you to go, is first thing in the morning. Everybody's getting their trucks late in the afternoon. Walmart gets them sometimes at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And then they have what they have on the shelves that following morning. Walgreens does get a delivery on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings. So milk would be available, you know, that Wednesday and Friday morning. So tomorrow you want to be sure to tell everybody if they need stuff, go early. You know, it's not convenient. It's not, you know, I know that, but if we want to be able to get what we need to go early and just be mindful not to hoard and, you know, that kind of thing. Walmart does anticipate getting back to like a regular schedule. Their DC was out of Arcadia, and obviously that got very damaged. So they are now working with a DC out of Winter Haven and then one a little further north. But they are expecting to get their regular shipments starting towards the latter part of the week. So we should start to stabilize there at Walmart. So that's nice. But I think that's about it. Just thank you guys.
About eggs.
Save-A-Lot had eggs.
Okay, good.
Save-A-Lot did have eggs today.
Go just out 27 on the right-hand side.
Oh, the
that's
milk.
right, Guinness Ranch. Yes, I saw that.
So-
eggs and vegetables.
Yes.
He was a former student, and his
Yes.
parents are out there.
The milk situation. So we did have. This is interesting. I heard Kathy asking everybody if they were coming to the Ag Foundation dinner and the South Florida Ag Foundation, just to kind of play on that for 1 second and stress the importance of that networking that we're given the opportunity to do. Artis Hammock had a dairy farmer north of here call her and say, you know, do you know anybody at this certain utility provider, which was not Clewiston Utilities, but that you can call to help us get up and running. We have cows that just dropped calves and we can't milk them. I don't pretend to understand the milking of cows, but anyway, they couldn't milk without electricity. And the cows were suffering and, you know, that kind of thing. So Artis, in all of her wisdom, serves on the Ag Foundation board, reached out to one of our previous attendees from FDAX, from Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services. Lo and behold, she got a phone call later that day from Nikki Freed, who said, how's your farm? You know, Nikki Freed is the commissioner of ag. How's your farm? How's your family? We're fine, but this is the need that we have. This is a part of our, not just our state issue, but it's a part of our nation's food supply. We need to be taking care of these, farmers. So she brought the dairy situation to Nikki Freed's attention, and I want to say within a couple of hours, the calls were made. The dairy had power. So just to kind of, I heard a couple of folks say they were going to be in attendance, and it's a great opportunity for the community to build relationships with our legislatures, at the state and federal level. And this past week, that really benefited us.
Good job.
Thank you. Again, it's a great team. You all know that. You know how I feel about you. You are calm. You are all high energy, but you are calm. You are stalwart. You're unflappable. And while it's all whipping around you, when I called Danny Williams, hey, how are you doing? Danny, the wind's at 87 miles an hour. Yep, we brought down one feeder line. We're going to have it right back up. Same thing watching Tito and the Chief eating some beef jerky in there. They were taking care of stuff, and there was no anxiety. Everybody knew what they were doing. Mr. Martin's the same way. You guys, you get where it's a little hot, so I think your anxiety is a little higher, but you all take care of the job in that calm way, and that exudes out to our citizens. They don't call us America's sweetest town for nothing. And that extrapolates over when we're in the grocery stores and we see that those shelves are empty, but I watch people still give it to somebody who's from out of the area. And our citizens are asking, where are you from? What can I do to help you? Should have been an Ace the other day when it was packed. People were paying the bill for others. I mean, that's why we live here. That's why we do this. It was delightful to go into a storm, not being concerned about that levee. However, early on, I did call one of the colonels and say, listen, you don't want me on the other side. He has assured me through numerous phone calls they're going to keep it at 15 feet, maybe a little bit over. But he said they have been at the level 1 since early on when Fiona raised her head. They have not dropped from a level 1, and that they are still looking out for us in the same way that they did before they started working on that levee. So I'm very glad for that. I appreciate all of you. God has put together, and I will use that term, God has put together a team here that nothing can rip asunder. You all work together very, very well, and I have been very pleased to serve with the people up here. We got this. Thank you. Having said that, do we